Tuesday night, and that means it's time for some 2A Tuesday. So we want to welcome everybody to the show here. If you're watching us on YouTube or over on Gun Channels, we are simulcast over there as well. And so let me stop that over there before it starts talking in my ear. All righty. A couple things I want to get through real quick before we jump into our discussion. We're not going to get into it probably a whole lot tonight unless the chat takes an unexpected turn. This is September 10th, 2019. That means tomorrow is September 11th. I do have a video that I'm going to be posting up tomorrow, so you guys can look for that, that discusses September 11th. Just want to acknowledge the fact that we do realize it here at the Sandhills Media Empire, which is our house. We understand that tomorrow is September 11th, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about it tonight just because there's some other stuff that we want to get through. But I know that there's going to be a lot of people that do some special stuff tomorrow. A lot of videos will be coming out, and a lot of social media posts will be coming out. So I want to say that I think it's super important that we do talk about it. We do remember it. It was a horrible, horrible thing, and over 3,000 people lost their lives that day. But if we don't talk about it, then the younger generation doesn't know what happened. They don't know how big a deal that really was, and to them, it's no big deal. And we're talking about people that are going to be old enough to vote next year in the presidential election who weren't even breathing air yet when those attacks occurred. So we've got a whole generation now coming up who wasn't alive for that. And it's up to us to keep our promise. We all swore we'd never forget, right? And so we want to talk about it, but we want to do it tomorrow. That's why we're not going to spend a lot of time on it tonight. I didn't want anybody thinking that we didn't realize or that we didn't care, because that's not what tonight's topic is. If you are out there watching us on YouTube, if you're commenting, that's awesome. I see that the chat's starting to get a little busy out there. If you're watching and you're not commenting, we don't know you're there, and we would really like to say hi to you. So go ahead and drop some comments there in the live chat. If you're catching us over on the Gun Channel side, that means that I can see you, and it looks like it's just myself and Jim Burgess over there right now, and Jim's doing some triple duty, looks like. So if we get some more chats on the Gun Channel side, then we will address those as well. So all right, here, let me close a couple windows down because my computer will run a little bit better here. Get rid of that one. Okay, here we go. All right, so real quick, who do we have out there in the chat on the YouTube side? We've got my beautiful bride, hot date for life, and silent co-host sitting off to my left, Sandhills sweetheart. We've got Jim Burgess out there, like I said, doing triple duty. Mike, Blitz, Ghost is in the house doing double duty. Clover's doing double duty. Hill Climb Ohio JB's out there. Boob Sweat, Squib's out there. Georgia Trucker 69. Who else do we have? Who am I missing? That might be it for now. If I missed you, make sure you make more comments. 10X Shooters is out there. So let us know that you're out there. And then real quick, we will let everybody on the panel say hi. So we've got a couple fellas that I don't normally get to invite in here because you guys are usually still doing your own thing, or at least the after chat's still going by the time that we go live on Tuesdays. So I appreciate you guys taking time out of your night to come and help me out with this chat. So real quick, we will say hello to Ghost Tactical.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm looking forward to you being here. Next up, again, I don't often get to talk to Clover on my chats, but welcome, buddy.
I appreciate the invite, and yeah, looking forward to it. You don't have us often because you don't pay enough. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Did you guys not get my baskets in the green room?
Right.
I tell you what I'm really upset about is what it looks like the ghost is doing to that duck up there in the top right corner. Just saying.
It looks like the ghost is riding the duck to me. I don't think that anything bad is happening. I think that in lieu of like a dragon or a winged Pegasus or something, I think you just picked a duck. as your mode of transportation. So, I mean, it's a ghost. You can do whatever you want, right? Duck probably doesn't even know that there's a ghost right there. So, the friendliest ghost I've ever met, I got to say. Joining us from Texas, we haven't seen you in a while, but you're no stranger to our live chats. Welcome, Jim Burgess.
How's it going? Thanks for the invite. And is Ghost friendlier than Casper?
Depends on if you ask my wife or not.
It also depends on what your intent is. He's kind of one of those live and let live kind of ghosts. So if you don't mess with him, then you're probably pretty safe. But if you start some crap, he might know how to finish it.
That's pretty accurate.
All right. And then last but not least, my other unofficial co-host, holding it down from across this great state of Nebraska, the king of the Travi himself, Mr. Travis P11.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I apologize for the noise there. I didn't realize I wasn't muted. I've got a very restless corgi in the living room right now. Anyway, guys, check out my channel, Travis P11. I'm sorry, I got a bit of a cold this evening. And Caliber Corner, it's my podcast. It's back on Monday nights at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, 7 o'clock East Coast Time. And we'll be done before Matt's Guns and Geeks podcast kicks off on Monday nights. So appreciate the invite, man. Thank you so much.
Go ahead and quark him. You have my permission.
What?
Not that matters. Nobody needs my permission to do anything.
No.
Doesn't he have like
hour and a half, 2 hours usually.
Doesn't he have like 79 chats per week now or something? So
I can't keep up with these guys, man. I don't know how they find the time. So
I think it's just because he's hiding from his family. So hey, look, there's Ammo Dog.
I think he needs his own channel. Probably get more views anyway if I put Dog on there. So
how do I don't know if I can make that.
No, that's all right. I'm just messing around.
If we do that. There he is. He's a little bigger. What's up, Charlie?
It's all right. He's busy, man. We've been out chasing rabbits tonight. So yeah. Good boy.
That's awesome.
All right.
Cool. All right. We'll go back to showing off my ugly mug. All righty. Well, let's just kind of get into some stuff tonight. I was telling everybody a little bit before we went live how I kind of had, if you noticed, I had a different title for this chat originally, and then we kind of changed it. Just because I kind of want to not be super combative. I think that would have kind of set the whole tone of the show maybe off to the wrong direction here a little bit for what I actually want to do. Last week, I don't know if anybody remembered me saying this, but I actually thought that it was something halfway smart that came out of my mouth for once. We were talking about things, and I had said that facts don't care about your feelings, and we've heard Ben Shapiro say that for a long time now. It's one of his favorite things to say. But there's also a group of people who kind of oppose gun ownership a lot of the times. The anti-gun crowd, for the most part, they don't deal in facts a whole lot, unless it seems to me like sometimes there's some facts that get cherry picked. But aside from that, it's mostly emotions and feelings. And really what it comes down to is feelings don't care about your facts. You can come with statistics, you can come with even anecdotes, and nobody seems to care, because ultimately the issue in their mind is we've got innocent people that are dying. And so there's got to be a way to be able to have a discussion. And I don't want to debate, not with general public. Anybody that wants to debate on one of these shows is welcome to come, and we'll have a discussion and a debate, but it's not about winning. Now, if you're talking to a regular person, it's definitely not about winning. If you go into it with that mindset, you've already lost, because ultimately we want to win hearts and minds, right? We want to convince people who maybe are on the fence, maybe they're anti-gun, or maybe they just don't care or don't know enough about the topic to really have formed a strong opinion. And we want to give them a good impression. We want to show them that as gun owners that we are responsible, law-abiding citizens. We also want to show them, those of us who consider ourselves to be advocates or even activists, we want to show them that we're responsible with the things that we say and how we say them, right? And so I know that not everybody's going to agree with me on this point. I know that not everybody's going to agree with everything that gets said tonight. And that's fine. That's the best part about this country, is we don't have to agree. But let's keep in mind that we're all working toward the same end goal. And that is to not lose our freedoms, not lose our liberties, and maybe gain back some of the ground that we've lost along the way, ultimately. So the only way that we can do that is with an informed, conscientious public, right? We've got to have the voting public understand exactly how things really work, and not just believe the lies and the myths that are spread by the uninformed or the ill-intentioned. Is that a word? The people that intentionally try to mislead, just to try and further an agenda of their own. And we don't want to be caught up and do that ourselves. One of the things that I talked about earlier this week in a video that I put out was the so-called Walmart challenge that I saw about going to Walmart and filling a cart full of stuff that you had no intention of buying, and then just walking out and leaving that mess for somebody else to clean up. I don't think that paints a good picture of us as responsible gun owners or responsible activists. I think that causing problems for other people, in my mind, that's something that Antifa does, or anybody else that actually tries to break things that aren't theirs, or hurt people, or fill in the blank. The stuff that those people are doing, we don't want to be associated with them. Why do we want to be associated with people who do things that are mean and rude just to try and prove a point that isn't going to be made? The only point that people are actually going to see is that whoever did that was a jerk. And as gun owners, we don't want to be seen as jerks. We want to be seen as the good guys, right? So there's got to be a way to try and be the good guys without compromising our beliefs. The reason I brought Clover and Ghost in was because, was it the after hours chat last week? I lose track. I think it was your after hours chat, Clover.
Probably.
That you were talking about finding positive messages after things, after the Walmart announcement and things like that, and taking a negative and turning it into a positive, finding the silver linings. And you guys had some really good stuff to say on that, and I kind of wanted to bring you guys in, not necessarily to repeat the same chat, but let's find some positive stuff that we can say, and positive ways that we can say things, and still, like I said, still not compromise, or still not just cave in when we're having a discussion with people. So I'll let you guys kind of jump in, and Jim, Travis, Clover, Ghost, anybody, just kind of
you
speak for
you
you.
said something there. You've covered a lot of ground so far, and a lot of good ground. I've explained things. I think you've explained things pretty well. I don't know that I altogether disagree. You did say something that I don't think was intentional, but some people out there listening could latch on to that, and when they do, they're latching onto a false premise. When you're talking about facts versus emotion, let's say, and you're pinning that on an anti-Second Amendment, anti-gun argument, because that's going to be tools of dissent across any type of disagreement or argument you have, regardless.
It's true.
It doesn't matter if it's over abortion or taxes or whatever it might be. You're going to have those that are that issue, whatever it might be, really hits home, and they're emotional. And then you're going to have the ones that are desensitized to it. They've not been through it, or maybe they've been through it and it's affected them in an opposite way, which can happen as well. And yeah, they're just hardened to it. To the point you're making about compromise, people see compromise as this horrible negative thing. And go ahead and crucify me now in the chats for me saying that compromise is not a horrible thing. Life is made up of compromises. I mean, how many of us here are married? Raise your hand. Do you get your way all the time and get to spend your money on everything you want and do everything you want? And compromise is unfortunately a part of life. Now, that being said, we're not in a situation with the Second Amendment. We're not in a situation or a position where we need to compromise because we've already lost so much. If you look at it, look at the NFA, look at the Gun Control Act, look at FOPA and the Hughes Amendment and Brady, and look at all of this bump stock bans. Look at just everything, right? They've whittled away so much. That is the issue with compromise. Is that at what point do you decide that you're going to draw that line in the sand, right? And so many people go out and they say, well, compromise is bad. Compromise is bad. I'm not, don't compromise. Don't compromise. Well, you need to be a little more specific and lay it out and say, we have compromised enough would be a better way to put that.
And let me clarify a little bit too. And I know that this is maybe splitting hairs. Maybe it's getting into semantics a little bit.
And that's a very important thing. And that's something we will likely touch on.
In my mind, compromise is a bad thing because the way that I see compromise, it's an agreement that two parties reach where neither side gets what they want. And I don't like it. I want to find a win-win solution. Especially, I mean, if you talk about being married, then if one side wins and one side loses, both lose because we're a team, right? So right. I never clarified that, but that's what I think of when I say the word compromise.
That's probably true. A better word for what I was describing. And again, I mean, we have to have these conversations about language because it does matter.
It does matter.
Maybe being an amicable or a mutual, maybe a mutual decision or an amicable decision, maybe would be something more akin to what I was referring to rather than compromise. Everybody out there obviously knows it as compromise and probably uses it in that sense. So it's kind of taken on that meaning, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think Kingpin said it out there. And we probably don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but compromise suggests that both sides get a little bit of something they want, and they concede a little bit of something they're willing to concede to get that. G-Webs would certainly argue that there's been a lot of ceding of ground by the Second Amendment community. And to your point, Clover, we've probably ceded enough. I'm not sure that I would call it compromise so much because I don't know what we've really gained.
And I think you're right, Jim. I think we've compromised to not lose more. Does that make sense? Instead of compromising to actually get something in return, we compromise to not lose something extra. And that's not the definition of compromise.
Yeah. We've got a stop loss mentality.
Yeah. I think that this is going to be an unpopular statement, but I think that we all, as 2A advocates, activists, supporters, whatever you want to call us, I think the first thing that we have to do is we automatically go into defensive mode when something happens. And for good reason, don't get me wrong. We have, like you said, we have been doing most of the compromising over the years. But this is going to be an unpopular statement, but it is a true statement. Whether or not the reasons don't matter, but I think one of the first things that we have to recognize and admit is when you see these mass shootings and all of that, instead of going into defensive mode and giving the facts and the statistics out there, the first step that we all need to do is understand and to a certain extent admit that the tools and the objects that we love to utilize, shoot, fire, whatever we want to call it, they are being used for evil. And unfortunately, we're coming under attack because of it, because they think that all of us are evil. We need to help make them understand that not everyone's evil, but we do have to start understanding where they're coming from. The people that are coming against the 2A community are people that have probably never held a gun, much less fired one. So all they know is evil with these instruments. And we need to understand that before we can start a conversation, because we can only throw facts at them so much, but they don't care about our facts. Like you said, feelings don't care about our facts. But we have to try to understand their feelings also. They feel that these instruments are evil, and we have to understand why they're saying that. And we have to admit why they're saying that. that although 99.9% of us in this world that have them are going to be very responsible, there is a portion of people in America, at least, and around the world, that do use these instruments for evil. And before we move on, we have to admit that, and then we can move on from there.
Yeah, we want to ignore the dirty little facts, right? Put them in the corner. Let's not talk about those.
Right.
You know, a lot of times we only want to talk about the facts that hold up our argument. And with anything you're talking about, I mean, whether you're talking about gaps in current, I don't know how to put it, but current code, be it penal code or whatever, or legislation or whatever it might be, that there's definitely gaps there that lead to implementation of things like red flag laws. Now, are they extreme risk protection orders? I hate using that other terminology because semantics, again, that's such a hot button buzzword.
Right.
But Ghost is absolutely right. We have to be able to admit the flaws and the things that need to be acknowledged, and then we need to be looking at and coming up with solutions, proactive ways. For so many years now, and this is what aggravates me, and this is, I've always likened the 2A fight to football. And football season's just started, of course. I'm not the biggest sports fan, but as I think everybody out there, even if you're not a sports fan, you can understand it. And we play defense, right? It's the stopgap measures you were talking about, Sandy. We play defense. We played defense forever. We always play defense. And defense, if you think about it, defense is a very negative thing, right? What does the defense do? They're going to stop, right? They're going to stop the other team. They're going to cause lost yardage. That's a negative thing. Lost yardage, negative thing, right? We're going to smash their teeth in. We're going to, it's a very negative thing, defense is. Well, if we take it to offense, if we can go and turn it around and find a positive measures and then go offensive with it, put that in terms of football. What does that mean? You're gaining ground, right? You're gaining yardage. You're scoring, right? You're winning. I don't know. That's just where my mind goes with all of this. And one of the first things, I go back again to what Ghost said. We've got to acknowledge, first of all, flaws in some of the things that we're spouting facts. Don't just spout the convenient facts. We need to actually talk about the inconvenient ones as well. And then another thing that I've seen happen, and my God, this goes to people playing the drama. And I think probably everybody on this panel and everybody out there that I see currently, hello, everybody in the chat, is guilty of it, including myself at some time, is playing into that drama. And I get so sick of it. And one of the recent things has come, I'm sick to death of hearing about Walmart. Let's move on to other more positive things. And now it's bled over into other companies, because now, I heard today that Academy is on board with the whole Everytown USA thing or whatever. I can't find any information anywhere that supports that. This particular individual, I won't name him, supposedly shows the Everytown USA website, which is a trash website anyway. If you ever tried to search it or do anything on it, that shows them listed there. But as far as a stance from Academy or policy or anything else, I can't find anything. And this information has went from, oh, Walmart did this, we hate Walmart, to, oh, now let's crucify everything that we see on the internet without any kind of proof. And if you remember, we threw a fit once upon a time. And I say we, I mean, I don't know. I guess I've got people in my pocket. But I can remember an instance where there was a black professor that law enforcement drug out of his house or something. Something happened, and Obama said some stupid stuff back when, and they had a beer summit over it. And the right, I guess you could say, crucified Obama for that, right? For jumping the gun and not having his back straight and all this other stuff. And our side does this all the time, and it's aggravating. And that, again, that's not a positive message if you don't have your ducks in a row.
Yep, very much so.
Now the big one is, we keep saying we've got to present the right facts. How do we even begin to get through to those people that that the feelings are in the way of the facts. You know, I mean, I guess one thing I've learned is after seeing, say, a mass shooting on the news or seeing something on TV, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, you know, if those people would have been allowed to carry, that might have been reduced, that might have been prevented. We know this, but I'll just say this right now. Like, if you're sitting around a bunch of aunties, or if you got family members that are not pro 2A, when stuff like that comes on the news and you just spew, we just say that, oh, well, you know, they've been allowed to carry, that wouldn't happen. That's not always going to get through to them. That's kind of what I've noticed, is it just creates a lot of frustration in our own family when we try to have these talks about these things. So my question is, you know, how do we even begin to get through to those people? How do we begin the discussion where feelings are the predominant emotion and the facts don't matter? When you are outnumbered, you know, what do you do? Where do you even start? You know, that's the big question I have for you guys.
The purpose part is the stat, like you said, the facts. As soon as something happens, they're not going to listen to our facts to begin with. Let's just be honest. They're not going to listen to them. And the best way that I actually had someone explain it to me, was a great way to start that conversation, is to ask someone who's who's saying we need to ban guns and all that, and just say, hey, do you have kids? Yes, I have kids. Do you have more than one kid? And if they have more than one kid, say, okay, so if one of your kids breaks curfew and you're going to punish that child, are you going to punish both children? Well, of course not. So why are you punishing all of us because one person did something crazy? And you try to make it a real scenario without guns to maybe start making them think about, maybe you're right. Maybe we shouldn't punish everyone because someone had a bad day. I don't know if that's a good one. That's one of the best ways that I've heard.
Yeah.
I've even tried to put that into a video before, and you said it better than I. It took me 5 minutes to not say it as well as you did it in 30 seconds. I think for me, part of it is I mean, you've got to hone your people skills. You've got to know how to talk to people, right? And you've got to know how to talk to different people. And I think that, I mean, most of us who come on these chats and have our own channels and put out our own videos and whatnot, I think we all kind of have basic talking skills, people skills, right? But it's one of those things where you have to, first of all, I think you have to take guns out of the equation to begin with in the conversation. If they don't see you as another human being, and if you don't see them as another human being, then the conversation really shouldn't even start. You've got to first establish some common ground. The first common ground is that, hey, we're both people. We both hate what just happened, right? You don't see the need for citizens to have firearms. I feel the complete opposite. I think that every citizen should have a firearm, but that's not what's important right now. What's important right now is that what just happened, you think it sucks. I think it sucks. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's just kind of get to know each other. Let's see where you're coming from. Let's, see where I'm coming from. And then we can move back to the topic of should people or should people not be armed. But if they don't see you as a human being, and if you can't treat them as a human being, then the discussion really isn't going to go anywhere. Calling people names, lumping people together. We talked about, stereotypes and generalizations last week. Sometimes those are fun. Sometimes those are funny. But when you're trying to have an honest, serious conversation, you don't want to talk to somebody as if you understand or you've already got them, pigeonholed in your mind. I know that that's one of the things that really bugs me when somebody's talking to me and makes an assumption about my life or my past or who I am or what I am, without really getting to know me first. And that means I try not to do it to somebody else, especially if I can just have one-on-one sit-down conversation where we can keep our voices down. Nobody gets agitated. Both sides honestly want to talk. And sometimes people just don't. Sometimes people just want to shout on both sides. Sometimes I just want to shout. And I catch myself not really wanting to have a real conversation. I just want to shout somebody down. And I don't want to be that way. I don't want to shut the conversation down before I even get it started.
Well, and just human physiology. right? We have one mouth and two ears. A lot of times you will run into somebody and we jump at that chance, like, oh, they're an anti-gunner, and it just we get triggered. We laugh, and we laugh about the snowflakes being triggered and all that. But I got news for you guys. Our side gets triggered just as much, if not more, than they do. It's just in a different way. But sometimes it is possible that other person just needs somebody to listen. You don't need to be spouting facts or doing anything other than just listening to them and say, I hear you, man. And turn around and walk off. They could be wargaming and trying to figure things out in their mind. And all they really need is they just need that sounding board. They just need somebody there that is paying attention, and listening to them and hearing what they're saying. And then later on, they figure it out on their own.
Well, and some of it too. I like what you said about one mouth and two ears. I need reminded of that daily. I've got a big mouth and a camera and a microphone. That's why I do this. But the thing is, and I had this put to me in a workshop once. When you're talking to somebody, when they're speaking, are you listening to what they're saying, or are you waiting to talk? Because if you're waiting to talk, then you can't very well listen to what they're saying, because you're rehearsing what you're about to say.
Or even worse, are you looking for an ambush point, which I think a lot of people are.
Yes, and I think that too many of us try those gotchas without really knowing. First of all, we can't wield them very well ourselves. Second of all, it's really hard to take somebody down with a gotcha if we don't understand it very well ourselves. And again, at the end of the day, even if we do gotcha somebody, what point do we prove besides that we're the jerk? So yeah, the ambush is not always the way to go. And sometimes it's the best way to break through and prove a point. It has its uses, just not always.
Well, we have multiple tools for multiple situations in life in general, right? And whether it's a hammer or a screwdriver or a jack or a tire iron or a firearm or a kitchen knife, or the words we use and the way that we act and the attitude we have, those are all still tools at our disposal. And sometimes we just simply use the wrong tool for the job. One thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm kind of watching the chat as it scrolls by, and there seems to be a little bit of a sentiment out there anyway that, hey, we listen and they don't, and we shouldn't have to convince them to keep our gun rights and this, that, and the other. And realize we're not talking about having a conversation with Bloomberg or Feinstein or something like that. We're not talking about, here, we're not talking about the hardened people. You've got to realize these hardened people, they're in positions of power. They, in Bloomberg's case, got more money than God and can, summon the masses with that money, unfortunately, and things like that. What you've got to look at, and I know for a fact there's a guy on the ground that is doing exactly what we need to be doing. And he's in a way, in a sense, and his name's Derek LeBlanc, and he's with Kids Safe Foundation out of, I believe, Oregon, could be Washington, but I believe it's Oregon. And he actually goes to a lot of the Moms Demand Action rallies and get-togethers and things like that. He kind of infiltrates, and he gets, by what you're saying, Sandy, by paying attention to people, right? Kind of being a student of humanity in a way, he can pick up on certain people and realize that they don't really belong there, right? They're just along for the ride. It's an emotional thing for them. They're just kind of checking things out, whatever the case may be. And then he'll kind of get them to the side and go, I have this program to where, we teach, responsible gun safety and all this to the kids, blah, blah, blah. And here's what we do in our program, and he's actually recruited a lot of, I guess you could call them students, families or whatever, by doing that, by literally walking into the lion's den. And why is that? Because again, we're talking about the hardened left on the gun issue is a very, very small portion of people. But those small portion of people have the money, the power, the influence to bamboozle people to be able to follow them. So that's all we got to do. We just got to be able to get those people to start thinking critically, thinking about themselves. And to the point that Travis down there asked a while ago about, how do you deal with, somebody with emotion or stuff like that? Somebody that's speaking emotionally and having that issue. Again, I go back to human nature. Having emotional responses to things is a very immature thing to do. It's human nature. It's perfectly fine. We all do it at some point throughout, the day or whatever. We have an emotional response to something. It's just going to happen, but it's a very immature response. And so you liken that to kids. Of course, Travis works with kids and whatnot, so he probably understands what I'm saying. But you liken that to kids, right?
Yeah.
And in order to sit down and have that conversation with a kid, what have you got to do? That's got to be a safe, calm, comfortable environment, right? It can't be confrontational. It can't be, a battle or a debate or something like that. That's the first step. The first thing you got to do is bring it down to a level that's safe and comfortable, and get them to start talking. From there, it's like we talked about. You got two ears, listen, and try to pick up on those things that don't look at them as ambush points, right? Look at them as opportunity to ask follow-up questions, to turn that person in a position to where they basically are at that point, they can point out their own flaws. They see where their logic is flawed because it's based in emotion. And at the Ghost point, I mean, he's got a great one. I mean, a great one would be, the people that say, well, why do you need, a fireman in the home? Well, why do you need a fire extinguisher in the home? We have firemen, right?
Right.
We have volunteer firemen even out in the country. I mean, we're out in the country. You've got, sheriff's officers or whatever. We have that. Why do you need that? Why do you, it's just in case, right? Now, do you teach your kids if your kid's fumbling around with the fire extinguisher in the kitchen? Are you going to tell your kid, "Hey, leave that alone"? Are you going to teach your kid how to use that fire extinguisher in case of an emergency? Well, sure you are. Same way with a firearm. So there's logical ways to do it, but again, I go back to it's a very immature thing, and so we got to bring the conversation down into a place almost like we're talking to kids. We got to make it safe. We got to make it really comfortable for them, and then kind of start from there.
Very, very good point. Real quick, I want to kind of address a little bit out here in the chat. Like you said, there's some sentiment out there about we shouldn't have to be disarmed, or we shouldn't have to do this to prove our point, or we shouldn't have to do that. I want to just go on the record here and say that's true. We shouldn't. You're right. We shouldn't. But the fact is, we do. The fact is that we're getting disarmed. The fact is that we do have to find a different way to prove our point. People shouldn't be killed in their schools. People shouldn't be killed in their churches. People shouldn't be killed in a nightclub or just on the street either. But it happens. This is not a perfect world. And ours is still not a perfect government or not a perfect system, right? We try to learn from our mistakes, and I think that it's the best system in the history of government, but nothing's perfect. There's always going to be bad things, and there's always going to be things misused. And we're always going to have to be watchful to defend the liberties that we have. It shouldn't be this hard of a fight. And I don't think the founding fathers intended it to be this hard of a fight. But here we are. Reality, again, facts don't care about our feelings. Reality doesn't care what should or shouldn't be. Reality is. And that's why we're having the discussion. Because whether or not we should or shouldn't have to have this discussion, here we are, because we need to.
Yeah, and I think the reality is that there's a couple of points there. I think the reality is that every time something bad happens, we're probably going to have to start from near square one with that discussion again, because all of a sudden those things are opened up and raw, and everybody hates it and it sucks. And and all of those things all over again, right? It's human nature. Something bad happens, it sucks. People hate it. And one of the other things that I saw John Patton with the Gun Collective say he took some heat over, and think what you will about the Gun Collective, but I don't think the guy's wrong about this one. Is that we are going? His point was we are going to have conversations with these people that don't like what's happening and they think they know how to fix it, or they've been fed a line that they're buying that they think will fix it. And we have to remember that conversation doesn't mean compromise. If you approach these guys, you have to meet people where they are, and that's pretty much the human condition. You're not going to win someone's heart and mind on just about any subject by just hitting them over the head with uh, a fact that you pull that's true, but it's kind of meaningless and without some better context. Sandy, you're a Christian. You're not going to properly express your faith to somebody and have them consider it in any way if you beat them over the head with your Bible because they have a beer in their hand.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of a similar it's kind of a similar concept. We're not going to win the hearts and minds of a bunch of people who think that 3 kids got shot in a shopping mall or a school last Friday, and we're over here saying that like Clover said, I'm guilty of this too. We're over here saying that AR-15s are used in about 1% of murders or less. They don't care at that particular moment. That's not the relevant fact for them.
Tell that to the family of the kid that got shot with one.
Right.
They don't care how many other kids got shot with one. What they care is that their son, their brother, their nephew, it's not coming back.
Yeah. And I think we can make progress with those facts as far as you understand what your strategy is and getting them to a spot with that at some point, especially if we're talking to them face to face. If you're trying to do it over the internet, and I'm super guilty of this, if you're trying to do it over the internet, you've already lost. It ain't happening in the comments section.
You've had a couple conversations on Facebook in the comments, have you, before?
Oh, maybe about 2.5.
Jim's pretty heated sometimes.
Yeah, Jim's Jim's cool because you come to my rescue a lot of the time. I just sometimes I'll have a comment on my Sandhills shooter page, and I just all of a sudden Jim's there making a comment, and I'm like, well, my work here is done. Jim, sick 'em.
But the strange thing about that is I have these same I knock skulls with people that are on my side. I'm in Lone Star Gun Rights or something, and I'll just use that name.
Yeah,
and some of those people are nuts. As far as
I've gotten cross with Jim a few times before.
That's the whole reason why I put up the video about that challenge. That how dumb I think it is, and it's not calling out people on the other side. It's calling out people on our side because we're better than that. We need to act like it. That's what it comes down to.
Well, when I see people on our side saying send old men and bachelors and stuff like that, I'm like, come on, guys. Do you want everybody to think we're just insane?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so a lot of it comes down to when you have a tragedy happen, when there are people that are killed, you're never, ever, ever, ever going to get them on your side by yelling, "Shall not be infringed. I will not comply for my cold dead hands." I promise you, that's not going to work. So, that's what we're talking about here is people out there in the chat are talking about this hasn't worked for a long time. We're talking about a new strategy, a new way of thinking, because what we have been doing for the past 40 plus years isn't always working. So the fact that we're talking about having a conversation on how to change our strategy, why wouldn't we try that? I mean, nothing else is working. That's what we're talking about here is we're not talking about giving up our rights. We're not talking about disarmament. We're talking about trying to have a conversation with people that don't care about our lifestyle, They don't care about who we are. And we can't make it about who we are. We got to make it about what America is and why we feel that we feel, not about our personal opinion of shall not be infringed, or we can't just keep quoting the 27 words to them. They don't care what the 27 words are.
No, they think it needs to be struck from the Constitution.
That's
okay,
correct.
let's switch gears a little bit before we run out of time here. Let's not. I mean, right? We know that to talk to people, especially one-on-one, there's right ways, there's wrong ways. There's just expect that it's not going to be easy the first couple times you do it. It's not going to be easy the first couple 100 times you do it. You'll probably fall on your face a couple times before you actually feel like you got through to somebody, and that's okay. Practice makes perfect. Let's switch gears and be proactive. Let's talk a little bit about putting out a positive message, not necessarily talking to somebody one-on-one, but just to paint us as gun owners in a positive light. One of the things that Clover brought up was the guy there in the Pacific Northwest who is has the what's the called again, Clover? The Kid Safe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kids Safe Foundation. Yeah.
Kids Safe Foundation. Okay. If you have a link to that and you want to throw it in the chat, feel free there. But that's one of the things that we can talk about. We can spread that message and help promote awareness of organizations like the Kids Safe Foundation. We can talk about Eddie the Eagle, right? And you guys all know, if you've heard me talk very much, you all know how little love I have right now for the NRA because of the way that they've acted from really in all throughout history. I can't find really any time that they stood up for my rights and didn't just try to stop the bleeding instead of getting the gun out of the attacker's hand, or getting the sword out of the attacker's hand. They just decided to let somebody keep hacking away at me, and they're just trying to slow down the blood flow. That's all that they've ever done that I can see. But at the same time, we have to draw the distinction, right, between NRA and ILA. The Institute for Legislative Action, they're the ones that are doing all the things that make gun owners mad. The National Rifle Association is still promoting gun safety. It's still promoting responsible gun ownership, responsible gun use. And I know there's other organizations that do it, but let's throw out some of the ways that we can just promote a positive image of gun owners besides, just Eddie Eagle or just the Kid Safe Foundation. There's so many. Let's get them out there. Let's talk about those. Even 4-H is positive in the sense of teaching kids about safety, even with firearms, right, Clover?
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, but 4-H doesn't get, and I don't think Kids Safe Foundation is either. And here's the dirty little secret and a dirty little truth. I get it. The chat out there, crucify me. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this the way it's going to sound, but I'm going to say it because I don't know that I can say it any other way.
Go ahead and say it, and then talk afterwards.
When it comes to the Second Amendment, firearm ownership, those liberties and freedoms and all of that, that is something that has been woven into the fabric of Americana since the existence of this country first began. And to focus solely on political legislation, and not look at community and societal implications and other things which change over time, right? You're doing a great disservice, and I don't think we're actually addressing the root cause of a lot of the issues that we have. Organizations like 4-H, like the NRA programs, different than the legislative things. I don't even want to begin to get into all of that mess. But some of the the programs that they have, of course. You talked about Eddie Eagle. That's a good one. When you look at the Girl in a Gun program, when you look at shooting sports in general across the nation, I mean, oh my God, look at all the different types of competitions and other things. When you look into hunting and stuff like that, what is the common thread? That common thread is definitely firearm ownerships of varying shapes and sizes and types and everything else. And the problem is everybody wants to focus on political sound bites, political statements made by freaking Walmart, instead of getting out and highlighting the people that actually normalize gun ownership, that are ambassadors for responsible gun ownership, and that whole, that whole genre. We focus on the wrong thing. I think we have to be vigilant, yes, with all of this, but we don't have to keep perpetuating stupid moves that companies make and harping on that forever, and just worrying to death about, is NRA politically, their influence, is that going to fail? What we need to be doing is we need to be worrying about how society views firearm ownership. And again, that starts by being a good example, being an ambassador, being at least an advocate. You don't have to be an activist. I get it. I don't view myself as an activist, but at least be an advocate for it.
I want to kind of echo off that just real quick. I think a lot of it has to be on kind of a personal grassroots level. And I'm not trying to put myself on a high horse, but personally, in the last about 5 years, I've been able to convince friends and family to become firearm owners, to go to the range, to become responsible firearms owners, just by simple discussions with them. These were people that weren't necessarily pro gun or pro 2A before. Just speaking, using some logic with them, maybe pandering to their feelings a little bit too. Like, hey, little things like, do you ever thought about maybe just getting a firearm for, protection of your family, and just having discussions like that over the last couple of years. And I've seen changes in those people, and they have, kind of come to the light, I guess you could say, kind of come to the pro 2A side. So much so now that a few of the friends I was talking with that have become gun owners in the last 2 or 3 years, they're sitting there, and again, red flag laws, right? They'll be like, man, can you believe that they want to pass these laws to just take away people's guns? This is ridiculous. Or the Walmart thing. Man, I can't even get ammo for my handgun at Walmart anymore. They're complaining about these things. And it's like, wow, 2 years ago, you never would have had a handgun in the house. You never would have went to the range with me, So yeah, it can be done. It's got to be done grassroots level, us working with friends, family. You got maybe a coworker,
Take a friend to the gun range.
Exactly. That's what I've done. It's amazing.
Think of a better, faster way to turn somebody from maybe not an anti-gun, but at least to turn somebody from apathetic to pro-gun than put them on the shooting range and give them something that don't make fun of them. Don't give them a 12 gauge shotgun as the first time they're ever going to shoot a gun. Don't put a 44 Magnum in their hand the first time they're ever going to fire a handgun. Do it the way that you would if it was your kid or something. But I tell you what, I'm thinking back to Labor Day just a couple weeks ago, and we went to the range. I put some pictures up on Facebook. I don't have a lot yet for video that I posted up, but that live video that it's got the horrible resolution. The friend that was holding the camera while we were going live there, she had shot a gun once before in her life. I don't know how many years ago it was. It was a 12 gauge shotgun, and that soured her on shooting a gun ever again. She had no desire until we went to the range on Labor Day, and her husband wanted to do some shooting with his Ruger Security 9 because he bought that for home defense and wants to be able to get proficient with it, and he's a great shot with a rifle, a shotgun, a bow. He didn't have a lot of pistol experience, and he's getting that now. But we pulled out the Ruger 1022, and she saw people having fun shooting that thing. And I'm like, do you want to try it? And she's like, yeah, I want to try it. So she tried that, and she shot a couple magazines full of, just 22 long rifle in the 1022. And I was actually testing a red dot sight, the Faiachi red dot sight. So we got that sighted in, and then she put that on the bench and put all of her shots within the bullseye, the full magazine in the bullseye. And it wasn't a long distance. It was 10 yards, I think, that I was getting it dialed into to start with. And it was the perfect distance for somebody that's just beginning too. And I mean, the confidence boost from that alone made her decide, well, maybe she can do some of this stuff. So then we put the Taurus TX22 in her hands, and she shot that, and it wasn't scary, and it was fun. And I don't think that she's ready to go out and buy herself a gun yet. But at the same time, we're driving home, and I said, hey, are you, was that the first time you'd ever shot a rifle or a pistol? And she said, yeah, the only time I've ever shot a gun was a shotgun, and I didn't like it. I said, well, I don't blame you. That's, right. I wouldn't like it either if that was the first thing. Yeah. I understand. I said,
buck.
I said, did you have fun shooting these? And she said, yeah. I said, do you think you want to go to the range again sometime? She goes, definitely. So the pride of taking a friend and moving her from the I don't dislike guns, my husband has guns, I don't care, they're not for me, over to I don't know if I want one yet, but I definitely want to go shoot some more. I mean, just seeing that and knowing that I was a part of that, I can't take the credit for it, but knowing I was a part of it, being there that day is amazing. That to me is almost as fulfilling. Like Jim said, I'm a Christian. To me, it's up there on seeing somebody and being able to talk to them about my faith, for the first time. So it's right up there. And if you've never had a chance to take somebody to the range that's never shot before, just take them. Teach them the rules of gun safety. A little dry fire practice or something first, real quick, just so that they understand that you got to be safe with the thing and be patient. And we didn't put, a full magazine in right away. I think the first time she shot the pistol, I just put one in the magazine. So the slide locked back right away. But I had taught her how to, how to manipulate the slide, how to keep her finger off the trigger until she's ready to shoot. I mean, all the basics that you and I all take for granted, she doesn't know them, and it was a lot for her to process and to keep straight, right? So the constant reminders and not belittling her and not yelling at her, just, okay, don't forget, keep your finger away from the trigger. All right, move your finger up above the trigger guard first, then pull the slide back. Okay, now you're ready to go. Now whenever you're ready, put your finger on the trigger. Just the constant gentle reminders. And she didn't feel like she was doing anything bad. And I told her it's no different than driving a car. When you drive a car, there's a lot, right? You've got a steering wheel, you've got accelerator, brakes, maybe a clutch. You've got to watch the other traffic, stay in your lane, watch your mirrors, watch your gauges, watch your speed, all that stuff. It's a lot. It's intimidating when you first become a driver. And now you can do that and shave and drink a cup of coffee and talk on the phone and do all that stuff. I mean, all the crap you see people do driving down the road, because you get used to driving, and shooting is the same way. But just try and remember how it was learning something new for you, and take somebody to the range and teach them something. Teach them gun safety first. Teach them how to be safe with it and how to have fun with it at the same time, because that's what we're talking about here. That's a positive for me. It was fun. It was awesome. It reinforces my desire to become an instructor.
And you know what?
Where would you
go ahead?
Where would you that person that you're talking about? Where would you categorize them on a spectrum when you're talking about the firearm issue? On a spectrum, left being totally anti, right being, 3%er, and then a middle fence. Where would you put them on that spectrum before you intervened?
I think dead center. I think she was just right on the fence. She was not against guns. I mean, her kids hunt, her kids bow hunt, and her husband hunts, and it was just never for her. She wasn't raised around guns, and she was never against them, because I mean, a lot of Nebraskans aren't. Even the people that don't have guns don't hate guns around here.
Right.
But she just, like I said, she had a bad experience once with the 12 gauge. Mm-hmm. And so she was right there on the, I don't care if you have guns, I just don't want to shoot them.
Right. And the majority of people out there, I think that's what, again, you go back into this misconception that, there's this, we're just so outnumbered on the left side of that argument. We're not. The vast majority of people, they're right there along that fence row. They really are. And all we have to do, we don't have to even bring them to get them to go to the range. We don't have to get them to get into the shooting sports or hunting or carrying every day or anything, all that. All we have to do is have a reasonable enough conversation with them to move them from, well, I don't really care about guns, so if they do away with the Second Amendment, it doesn't affect me, to the side where it's like, well, it's not for me. I'm not going to do it. But you know what? We've got a right. So I'm going to stand with the people, to preserve that right, even though I'm not going to take part myself. And that's a reasonable stance. And there are a lot of people out there that, seemingly very liberal people that vote Democrat and everything else that are in that little section of the spectrum that are technically, they're on our side. They're not gonna go for that kind of stuff either, even though they don't partake themselves. So I think there's this misconception that we've got to move people a really long way. There's just, we focus on, they're hardened anti-gunners, they're really far to the left on the issue, and look how far we got to bring them to get them over the fence. And it's like, no, all you got to do is literally think about a barbed wire fence. All you got to do is spread the two wires. That way they can just step through. That's all we have to move them, is just that very short length across the spectrum. So keep that in mind when you're out there talking with people. You don't got to get all 3% crazy and everything else. You've just got to be calm and rational. Like I said, a comfortable conversation, and just move them a little bit at a time. Get them to cross that fence. And then if that piques their interest, and like Sandy's talking about, and they want to go to the range, heck, take them to a range. And then if they start talking about hunting or getting into shooting sports, we'll help them out, find them some resources with that, and move them further to the right on the spectrum. But we don't have to.
I think also we have to understand that we talk about in our own community that there are people that are pro-gun, but may not be the most pro-2A people. We have to recognize also that people that are anti-gun may not be anti-2A. And that's something we need to have a distinction between, is if we can appeal to their senses of the Constitution and with the forefathers, that might be a way in, and say, hey, you might be anti-gun, but are you anti-Constitution? And if you can appeal to their sense of Americana, then maybe that's a different approach to have. I'm just throwing stuff out there, but there are people that may be anti-gun but are pro-2A because it's a constitutional thing. That might be something we need to think about also.
And I'll tell you what, real quick, man, once you convince somebody to buy that gun, or you've taken somebody to the range and they get that first gun, you might see them start to care a little bit more about their own rights. Like I said, in discussions you have with them, then they're going to care because somebody wants to take their property away from them. Somebody wants to take their newfound protection from them. They might become an advocate. You never know. They might change. I've seen it with my own friends and family, so it is possible. They do suddenly start to care once they have their own gun.
And that's a valid point.
Also, a lot of people will change their mind because they've had their house broken in, or they now have a reason to want a gun, and maybe that's another way to appeal. Say, look, you've worked hard your whole life to buy nice things for you and your family. What if someone comes to try to take that from you? Wouldn't you like to be able to protect your family and your house and your property? That's what the forefathers believed in. That's what they believed in, is protecting yourself, your property. And if that's a way to get in the door, but once again, we're not talking about having the right answers. We're throwing out different ways to have these discussions that might help one person. But if one person changes their mind because of these talks, that's what we're looking for. We're not trying to change the whole country. We need to try to change one mind at a time.
Yeah, and then they can have their own conversations.
To what Travis was talking about there. I don't know. Just lost my train of thought. Give me just a second.
Yeah, it was the idea of them suddenly caring now that they've got this newfound freedom. They don't want to lose it. They don't want to lose it.
That's where I was going to go. A lot of people, like me, I mean, I don't, I say it all the time. I don't remember my first experience with a firearm. I was too small. I just don't remember it. I remember some of the early ones, and then I have heard stories with my grandfather or dad or whatever it might be, but I don't remember them. But, there's other people though. like you say, that it's a newfound thing for them, right? So a lot of the older folks, a lot of the people that grew up with my particular situation or a similar one, where they've just been around firearms for so long and they've carried for so long and they've done this and they've done that. When let's say you carry for 20 years, right? You've never had to use that firearm. You practice situational awareness, you do all your stuff, you train, you do everything, but you've never been in a situation even close to having to use that firearm. God willing, we're all that way, right? So it's human nature to sit back and go, well, okay, I guess if they take this away, I've never really had to use it, right? You've got that experience that, well, I've never had to use it. So is it, not that it wouldn't be detrimental and not that you want them to take your stuff away, but it would seemingly to you in your mind, right, or in the mind of a person, I guess it would be kind of less of a loss, right? Because that's mundane. It's become it's like relish the little things, right? And a lot of times that we get kind of numb to it because we've been in that community, in that culture and everything for so long. The people that are new to it, those are the people that's really going to get agitated, right? Because they just got on this awesome bandwagon called firearm ownership and found out how fun it is to go to the range and how awesome it is to feel protected at all times and all of this stuff. And then a few months or a few years down the road, all of a sudden that's threatened. I think that being able to reach people and bringing new blood, I think that revitalizes our side of the argument. I mean, by drastic measures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I had a thought too that I was going to mention, and then I lost track of mine too. So
there's too many good conversations
it's
going
contagious.
on, man.
Well, between what's going on in the chat and trying to listen to what's being said, and you guys know I have a one-track mind, so either my eyes or my ears have input, but not both.
Not trying to sound corny or cheesy, but if you've got somebody that's been on the line, whether or not to be a gun owner, somebody that has always been opposed to it, say, you know what, let's go to the range. Come on, why don't you come with me and try this one time, and if you don't like it, I'll never bother you about it again.
That's
right?
what I was going to say. One of the best examples.
Just do it, man. Go have good. You will be surprised.
Or another example, the range could be like a first step. That could be a little bit intimidating. Maybe for the first, hey, you're going to go pick up a new firearm or whatever it is at the gun shop. Call them up and say, hey, I'm going to go pick up one of my. Do you want to come and see how the process works?
Another
just a simple trip to the gun shop to see that. Hey, look, you got to fill out this paperwork and look at all the questions that it asks and all this other stuff. That could start a process in their mind where they go, well, okay, this is already, because we know that firearm ownership is already regulated to the hill. So that starts that process in their mind that, oh, well, I didn't realize how complex all this actually was.
Right. And another great option too, if you have this as an option near you, just this weekend, we stopped at a gun show that we were driving past, heading to where we were on Saturday. Take them to a gun show. Show people that it doesn't matter whether you're at a gun store, a gun show. There's no loophole. You can't walk out of a gun show and buy anything without the same paperwork and background checks that you have to do in a gun store.
Well, and another thing too, when you're talking about taking them to the range or even taking them to, hey, if you shoot competition, hey, why don't you come watch me in this competition or the gun store, something like that. If you can get them into that fold and then they start seeing how, because okay, we got some really buttholes, Jim Burgess in the community, but by and large,
represent.
And I'm kidding.
I know.
It's a good dude, but by and large, I mean, the vast majority in our community and culture are amazing freaking people, very friendly, very talkative, care about each other for the most part. And if you get into that situation of that gun shop range, they're going to start seeing that culture. And that's a part of, by and large, we're very welcoming. I know we're talking about, again, we get back into the positives and negatives, and we're talking here about, how sometimes we're too negative and this, that, and the other, but we're really not. And that is a positive when you step back and look at it as a culture or community as a whole. And once they start experiencing that part of the community, they may want to become at that point a part of the community, and that's a very big motivating factor.
Absolutely. Well, here's what I was gonna say earlier is one of the best examples that I've got is it's not just my friend from a couple weeks ago, but my wife. My wife was raised in a home that had a couple guns, but she wasn't raised around guns. We're not really sure what happened with her brother because he's as big or bigger a gun nut than I am, and has been for a long, long time. And he's got stuff in his safe that I just can only one day hope that I get to even shoot, let alone have one of my own. And he likes the rare stuff, the stuff that you don't see in everybody else's safe a lot of the times. But the thing is with my wife is that she didn't really care one way or another about guns before she met me. And between my journey of becoming a concealed carrier, becoming more and more in tune with what's happening politically, getting to know all of you in the online community, she's been with me every step of the way for this journey. And the more I learn, the more I tell her, and the more she learns, whether she realizes she's learning it or not. I know she's picking up a lot of stuff that she's not even realizing she's picking up on. But she has gone from...
We're sorry, by the way.
Yeah, and she can hear you. She's gone from kind of being, again, firearm neutral. She was never anti-gun, but she never thought that... I don't think you ever thought before we met that you'd probably ever own one of your own, did you? She's shaking her head no. But she's gone from being the same thing, middle of the road, dead center on the fence, to she's a licensed concealed carrier now. She's got a gun of her own. She wants to get more proficient with it, more comfortable with it. She doesn't have the comfort level yet with firearms that I take for granted. But she'll get there. Like I said, it's like driving. When you're 16 and you first get your license, or you're first, taking that driver's ed class or whatever, it's intimidating to drive a car. But by the time you're, 20, it's not a big deal, right? Because you've got experience, and she's going to get there. I can tell already that with the lack of experience that she's had so far, she's going to be a better shot than I am. So not that that's tough, but she's going to be able to outshoot me before long, and she doesn't believe
they are by default.
Yeah, the ladies always are.
I don't know how many guys I've seen that their lady could outshoot them.
They pay more attention, man. They put less pressure on themselves when they're shooting than we do.
That's what it is.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be a sexist generalization here, but that's how it is with my own wife. If you guys can all agree with that, then that's the majority in this room, and I think it's truth.
Most guys, and I've seen some girls that do this, but mostly it is a guy thing, where yeah, it's a, what am I thinking? The heart races and the anxious, right? Going to the range and stuff like that. Now, when I first will get out on the range, I'm kind of that way. Oh, I can't wait to get out on the range, even though it's right outside the house. It's like I can't wait to gather up what I need to gather up and get out there, even though I've just got to walk a few yards. Yeah, it's like I can't wait. And I've got to calm myself down. Because it's like I know I'm fixing to go have fun. I'm fixing to go enjoy this. This is going to be cool. Oh my god. And I get out there and I shoot like crap, and it's like, okay, breathe. Regulate the pulse.
I know. I'm already getting excited for my day off tomorrow because I'm hoping that the weather holds, and we're going to go at least shoot some more on the 22s. I got some stuff to test. So,
but my wife was the same. My wife was the same way in a lot of respects. She may have. Instead of being on the fence, she may have actually been a little bit left of the fence, to the point that, she was kind of scared of them and stuff like that even. And she, of course, has spoke about it before, and she can obviously speak for herself. But, what got her again was that I think was a community aspect, and, being out on a 4-H range with, 60, 70 kids, shooting all types of firearms in all different directions and fashions and everything else, and seeing how regulated and safe it was and how much fun everybody was having. And I think that, that really made a big impact on her. And so that's one thing that I would recommend when we're talking about people. I agree. There's been some chatter out there in the chat about getting somebody like that to go right off the bat to a gun range. But there's other things that maybe you can do, and maybe finding some kind of local youth shooting sports and saying, dude, kids do this around here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's go check out and look how safe and regulated and everything that these kids are. And then an adult, a grown adult, 30, 40 years old, whatever, 50, 60 years old, sees an 8, 10-year-old, shooting pistol out there on the range, then it doesn't seem so overwhelming or scary anymore. They're like, oh my God, kids are doing this. It's no worse than Nerf guns or BB guns or anything like that. It really isn't. It all boils down to, to safety.
My wife, I think you guys know this, most people know this, my wife doesn't like guns. She's not anti-gun. She just doesn't like them. But I think that it's interesting that over the years she has gotten so used to guns being around and in part of my life that when I go out of town, she gets uneasy. And it's not because I'm not there. It's because that her protection is gone. And she knows how to manipulate a gun. She knows how to load. She knows how to fire a handgun. But she doesn't have any desire to train or to practice and all that. She just wants to know how to point and shoot. But I think the fact that we're talking about someone who is not a fan of guns now has become reliable, or she relies on the protection of a gun in a world. And she grew up that guns weren't legal. Guns were not around her. She never been around handguns or rifles or anything. And now just hopefully by me setting a good example, a positive example of being safe, understanding that gun safety, and we're not out there trying to cause harm. We're just here to protect and all of that. She's even, talked about, hey, maybe some of our girlfriends should go shoot with you sometime. So sometimes it doesn't take words. It's just actions and showing them a positive person with how they handle guns, how they're safe with them. You don't have to say anything to somebody, but if you continuously show them that you're a safe, responsible gun owner, that might plant the seed without even saying a word to them.
And I never really thought about that part before, but you met your wife in Japan, right?
That's correct.
Where she came from. So she grew up not even in the United States. She grew up in a country where gun ownership is completely different and viewed differently, correct? So she's
pretty much
she's
the only
got
ones that have guns are the Yakuza over there.
Okay, so she's got a totally different viewpoint and a background of her perspective than one that I can't even wrap my head around. So, I mean, that's cool. And you've got that an insight that I'll probably never have, just, being close to somebody who grew up in a different country where, they don't have the access to guns and the freedoms for guns that we do here. That's pretty cool. And I'd never thought about that part until now, because I was aware that she didn't grow up in the US, but at the same time, I never considered the fact that in your house you've got a completely different perspective.
The interesting thing is a year ago when my daughter turned 21, we had asked her, what do you want for birthday, this, that, and one of the things she told me is I always get her something from me personally, and she said, pay for my concealed carry. Now, my daughter shoots, she carries, but she's not a gun person. Like she's not, she doesn't make it part of her lifestyle aside from carrying, but she doesn't make it a point to discuss guns with people. That's just not how she is. But I thought it was interesting that when my daughter asked for a concealed carry, my wife was like, hell yes. If she's going to be out there on her own, working weird hours as a nurse, I want her to be able to defend herself. And this is coming from someone who 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago would have never said that about my daughter. So, like I said, sometimes words don't change; it's actions.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes too, it's environment. I mean, this has never been a safe world to live in, no matter where you were, no matter who you were, right? But it's so much more evident now. And if anything, one of the, I guess, not necessarily a benefit, but one of the byproducts of the 24-hour news cycle that we have now is awareness. And sometimes, yes, they harp on things that they shouldn't, and they don't always tell every fact. But the fact remains that so many people now are aware that the world's not a nice place and it's not a safe place. Now, too many people get wrapped up in what should be, and they lose track of what is. And we can't make our laws based on what should be. We have to make our laws based on what is. And that's something that I wish more people would keep straight. But at the same time, the more people are realizing this isn't a safe place. Even the U.S., one of the safest countries in the world, that doesn't mean it's a safe country necessarily. You're still, again, statistically more likely to get hurt, doing a fix-it project in your home than to get shot. Yes, I agree with that. But there's still that chance that bad people can do bad things no matter where you are. And people are becoming, I think, more aware of that. I would like to see more people be prepared to take their safety into their own hands. Personally, I've never seen a law yet that stops people from breaking itself. Fear of penalties, yes, but the fact that there's a law never stopped anybody from breaking said law. The fact that there's a speed limit never stopped anybody from speeding. Only when they see the cop do they slow down usually. So the speed limit itself doesn't stop somebody from speeding. Laws don't prevent crime. Laws only tell you what's going to happen to you if you break the law. So that's one of the things is we do know that it's a dangerous place, and it sounds like, Ghost, in your house that the pendulum swung the direction that I want to see it swing to, in the sense that maybe your wife doesn't want to, carry herself, but she wants your daughter to be safe, and she wants her to have every advantage she can, and hopefully she'll never need it, right?
Yeah, and more importantly, even though she doesn't want to have a gun that's hers or whatever, she has asked me to show her how to put a magazine into a gun, rack the slide, how to get a good sight picture, how to the basic mechanics of firearm handling. She is, I'm not going to say she's ultimately proficient, but if I'm gone and she's in the house by herself and someone breaks in, I promise you, when I leave, there's a gun within 3 feet of her at any time. And it's one of those things where I never thought that was going to happen 10 years ago. At that point, 10 years ago, it was, hey, I know that you've got a bunch of guns, but just don't flaunt them. Now it's, before I leave, hey, I want to make sure that everything's good to go. You've got this, blah, 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 blah. Where's everything? And we do a little walkthrough before I leave to go somewhere if I'm going to be gone overnight. So it has changed in a sense that, once again, she's not going to be an operator. She's not going to go take training classes. She's not even going to go to the range with me very often, maybe once a year at the most. But the idea of the gun is not an evil thing to her anymore. And sometimes it sounds bad, but we're not asking everyone to become pro-gun, pro-2A activists. We're just hoping that people understand that the way of the gun is not an evil thing.
Right. It's neither evil nor good. It's inanimate.
That's correct.
Right. Speaking of perspectives from outside the U.S., Bloke's 2 cents out there is out there in the chat. And he's right. What the outside world has to understand is that this country was founded on principles which they're not accustomed to. His mom hates guns because she's from the UK, and that's UK for you, he says. But that's true. The very fabric of this nation has guns woven into it. The very fact that we began a revolutionary war was because somebody tried to take guns away from citizens. And I've mentioned that before too. This country was founded by outlaws, and we've always had kind of the romantic viewpoint of outlaws, even through the the West and everything like that. So guns are part of being American, whether you like them or not, whether you shoot or not. Without guns, we wouldn't be here as our own nation. We'd still be singing "God Save the Queen," right? But more than that, I think about my perspective. I grew up in the country in Nebraska, where I mean, guns were like pickups and belly buttons. Everybody had one. So I grew up in a culture where it wasn't gun culture necessarily. It was just the fact that everybody's got a gun. You might have to shoot, a coyote. You might have to shoot a rabid coon or something in the yard. You might have to put down a cat or a dog that got ill, a horse or a cow. There are things besides hunting and sport and recreation. Sometimes it's just everyday ranch life that you have to use a gun for. What Hollywood,
it's a tool, man.
what Hollywood doesn't tell you is the reason why cowboys carried guns wasn't to shoot it out in the street at high noon. The reason cowboys carried guns was in case they ran across, a bear, a wolf, something like that, or if they fell off their horse and got hung up in a stirrup and were getting dragged, they had the gun to put the horse down and save their own life. That was the number one reason why they carried a gun, was in case they had to shoot their own horse if they fell off the horse and were getting dragged. And Hollywood's not going to say that because that's not sexy, that's not romantic. But guns have been an everyday tool for so long, and it's only in the more civilized or more urban areas where they're no longer an everyday tool. You can argue whether or not it's a necessity. But I guess even if I say urban, I should say suburban, because the urban part of the world is kind of becoming not safe. And I think that guns kind of are a necessity for daily life, sometimes for survival. Because there's all kinds of threats, right, in the world. But again, if we could even just get the general public, and we're talking about what I always say, the 80%, right? Not the 10% that are dyed in the wool left or dyed in the wool right, the 80% in the middle on the fence. If we can get some of those folks to just understand that guns are not evil, only people can be evil, and you can't legislate evil. So
I don't know that I completely agree with you on one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's the whole idea that we live in a dangerous world or a dangerous country. I don't think it's any. Now, granted, when you're talking about let's narrow that down and let's say developed countries. But I believe by and large, when you look at the amount of deaths in general, right? I mean, you pointed out, from car accidents to, medical issue, whatever it might be. Medical issues wouldn't count if we were talking about danger, I guess. But one thing that I think we got to be careful with is perpetuating a narrative that we're talking about specifically our country here. So we'll narrow it down to that. We got to be careful about perpetuating a narrative that mainstream media bombards us with all the time, is that this country is such an unsafe place. Unsafe because of firearms, or unsafe because of murder, or something like that. Something outside of you went bungee cord jumping or whatever, and the cord snapped, or you went skydiving, or you're dirt bike racing, or you're taking a risk, right? There's this narrative perpetuated that is just so dangerous that you're likely to succumb to evil in this country, and I don't believe it's true. I do believe that there's pockets in the country, as you mentioned. There are certainly some urban centers that the risk is far greater, but across the country and by and large, we live in a pretty amazing place that you can go pretty much anywhere at any time and never feel threatened.
And that's true. And when I say that we live in a dangerous world, I don't necessarily mean that the United States as a country is dangerous as compared to other countries. What I mean is the potential is always there in the real world for danger. Sure. Is what I mean.
Yeah, and in a free society, even more so. I mean,
True.
that's just a price for liberty, unfortunately. But my point is that we've got to be careful, because we know that mainstream media, there's a reason that tragedy and grief and strife and stuff is so mainstream in the 24/7 cycle. And it's because it conditions people into this thinking that, oh, the world is so horrible, we have to do something. So us playing the narrative that the country is so dangerous, we all have to arm ourselves. I don't know that that's I just don't see that as a positive move. I mean, playing into that narrative, you know what I'm saying? Because as far as in the event, it's like I talked about earlier. There's people that I don't know how long I've carried now, but I don't know that I have ever felt anywhere remotely threatened or uneasy enough, that I was cognitive that I was carrying and I might have to use that and all of that stuff. I mean, situational awareness, sure. I mean, you want to utilize that all the time, but I've never felt the slightest urge that I might, have to draw down on somebody or do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a lot of places at a lot of different times of the day or night, and I've just never felt that way. And so, if you've got people that have gone through that, yeah, it just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't add up. Now, that being said, am I gonna stop carrying because of that? No, I'm not. But I'm also not going to play in that I just have to carry because the world is so unsafe. It's kind of the same thing. We go back to the fire extinguishers, right?
You're thinking that.
I've never had a house burned down. I've come really close to setting the kitchen on fire many, many times. I'm not, toaster ovens are not my friends, but I've never had that happen. I've never had to use a fire extinguisher for all of that. But again, it doesn't mean I'm not going to have one, because in the event, and the very unlikely event that something like that should happen, I want to be responsible for my own safety.
And you want to have the best tool for the job too, should the need arise, right?
Not just the best, the most efficient.
Well, I guess, yeah. To me, best, most efficient would be the best.
Some people
if you're cooking on the stove and the pan of grease starts on fire, then a bucket of water is not the best tool for that job. Mm-hmm. Hence the fire extinguisher.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Or some people pour flour. Or you can use, a lot of times you could just put a cover over it or something like that. But the other thing is, I mean, that goes back into training too, that directly relates with firearms. But do you know how to deal with a fire? You made that point, and that was a great point. I mean, some things will make it worse. Are you're going to be calm and collected when you get a flash fire in a pan on the stove, or are you going to freak out?
That's one of the things that just makes my it gets the hair on the back of my neck up when I hear somebody say we have to do something. Mm-hmm. Well, right, we do. We need to do something, but it's got to be the right something. If there's a pan of bacon grease on fire on the stove, throwing water on it is doing something, and you're just going to make a fire worse doing that. Mm-hmm. So we want to do the right thing and not make things worse than they already are in the process, which means we need to, and I know you don't have a lot of time with the fire, but with legislation, nothing's fast. We need to take the time to assess what is the best something to do. And not do something just for the sake of doing something. The illustration that I've heard used is, if I walk into the emergency room and I've got, my arm is just hanging by some skin on my shoulder, the last thing I want them to do is throw oxygen mask on me. No, fix this problem.
Right. You got a runny nose, Sandy. We're going to treat you for that runny nose.
They'll put a tourniquet on my leg. But what about the real problem? Assess what is happening and then do the best thing in the most efficient manner to fix that problem or solve that problem. Don't solve problems that we don't have.
Sometimes, and I think this goes back to the entire great conversation that we've had. Sometimes that solution is not going to be legislation. Sadly, it's going to be us getting up off our butts, setting an example, being ambassadors, and working to change society. Society has changed multiple times, the roaring 20s and the this, that, and the other. And, this goes at society has changed a multitude of times since human first set, foot come out of the primordial ooze, or, the garden, or whatever you believe in. Yeah, society has changed many, many multiple times, and it will continue to change. And so we have to evolve our methods with keeping to those morals, and what are the other principles, I guess, those morals and principles, right? That are enshrined in the Constitution: life, liberty, and the pursuit or property, if you will. We got to keep to the morals and principles for those sort of things, regardless of how society is changing. We've got to work to counteract that, and we don't do that by playing into fear, and fear mongering and scaring people and that kind of stuff. We do that by setting examples.
Well, and I know when I use terms like win hearts and minds, I know that there are people out there that are going to hear that are going to think, oh, this guy wants to win hearts and minds. He wants to give everybody a flower and sit and sing Kumbaya together. You can make fun of me if you want to for saying hearts and minds, but that's what we need to do. We need to win hearts and minds. We need to convince people that we're normal people. We need to show people that we're responsible. I think that goes a long way. Just showing responsibility. We need to set an example for others, right? We need to get those people off the fence. They're on the fence, okay? They're going to come off the fence at some point in their life, probably. And if we're not doing anything to show them that the pro-gun side of the fence is an okay place to land, then all we're doing is pushing them off the other side. And it's one of those things where doing nothing sometimes is just as bad as doing the wrong thing. Yeah. And if we're not going to go out there, and even just by setting an example, you don't have to have a YouTube channel, you don't have to make videos, you don't have to post on Facebook, you don't have to do any of that. But if you just show the people around you, like Ghost, relayed with his missus, if you just show the people around you that as a gun owner, that you're not a threat or a danger, and not only that, but maybe if it hit the fan, that you're the kind of person they might want to have around or be around, then that goes a long ways to winning those hearts and minds. Mm-hmm. Make no mistake, we're in a battle, we're in a war, and hearts and minds are the way that we win it, not shall not be infringed or not one more inch, which are things that I love to say too, don't get me wrong. But
I don't know how to
win hearts and minds.
I don't know how profound that that actually is, but we do have a problem in this country when we talk about society, and we need to take a good hard look in the mirror as well. We have a problem with hardened hearts. Mm-hmm. And to bring it full circle, right? Because we kind of started this off talking about what? We talked about facts versus basically feelings and emotions, right? How do you reach the heart? How do you change a hardened heart? You don't change a hardened heart with facts. Mm-mm. That's the mind. You don't change a hardened heart with facts. So you have to utilize both tactics at some point.
You do. And the real trick, and that's why we have these discussions, because I don't have all the answers. I don't always know. I don't always have the experience or the training on knowing which tool to use for which job, right? That's why we have these discussions. Is not only does it make me think, and hopefully it makes you think, but all of you out there that are listening to my voice right now, we want you to think. We don't want you to think what we think, and I think I can speak for all of us on the panel. We did lose Travis; he had to go, but we'll say goodnight to Travis here in a little bit.
Travis wants you to think what he thinks.
Travis does want you to think what he thinks. That's part of being the king. He has that as an option, I suppose. If you're one of the Travites, then you do already think what Travis thinks. But all joking aside, we don't want you to think what we think. We want you to know what we think and then go and think about it and figure out what you think. And the reason that I have people on here that aren't afraid to tell me that they think I'm wrong or that they disagree with me. And Clover, you're one of the best people to do that. And it's not necessarily that I think that you put me in check, but again, you bring a perspective sometimes that I've never thought about. and I've had other people on the show that do the same thing, that see the world from a different angle than I do, and it gives me a reason to think too. And I'm a huge proponent of having one's beliefs always challenged. I never want anybody to feel like they shouldn't challenge what I say or what I think, because if my beliefs are challenged, it's healthy. One of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to think about what you have to say, and it's going to reinforce what I think, and I'm going to be even stronger in my convictions, or I'm going to think about what you have to say, and then I'm going to rethink what I think and maybe change my mind or change my opinion. But that only comes from having a discussion. Jim, I don't know that you know this, but one of the things that you and I ran into each other on Facebook with somebody else, that it's one of our YouTuber friends had posted. It was about the convicted felons and losing their voting rights. When people presented, and when that person presented what they thought about the situation, I'd never thought of it that way. That's a great viewpoint. I'm not necessarily saying that I've done a 180, but I definitely can see the merit, and I don't necessarily know that I'm gonna keep thinking the way that I was thinking before. And I think that's healthy. And I think that whatever topic we talk about, whether it's here, whether it's on Ghost or Clover's channel, or on Travis, or if Jim starts doing some videos, or anybody else out there in the chat, in any of our chat topics, if it makes you think, and it either makes you feel more strongly about what you already thought, or it maybe changes your mind a little bit, then it's been healthy and it's been worth it. And I just want these chats to be worth it.
I think that there was some discussion, a while ago in the chat about, I wish we didn't have to do this online. But I think I want to take the opposite approach. I think that the online chats are important because it gives us a way to be connected very easily from around the world, not just our country, but around the world, that people can not only galvanize our thoughts, but we can also be around people that might change their mind or might have different opinions. We have to think that this is our war room. Being online and being together, the discussion is what this is all about. No one here is trying to say that my opinion is the gospel. Not one person here is saying that. We're all coming with different ideas, but the whole idea is having the discussion to make our stance and our fight that much stronger. This is our war room. So if we start thinking about it that way, instead of coming in, and I'm not saying on this chat or this channel, but there are a lot of chats that people in our own community, they argue like dogs, tooth and nail, and they're supposed to be allies. Mm-hmm. You don't have to agree with what everybody says. But like you said, until we start listening to people, not hearing them, but actually truly listening to people, especially within our own community, our own culture, our own allies and friends, until we start listening to each other, then we're not going to see any change. How can we expect people to change their minds when we don't even get along within our own community? Mm-hmm. That's got to be the first thing.
Well, let's go back again towards early in the chat. Clover, you were talking about football season is here now, and I'm a huge Nebraska Cornhuskers fan. I don't care whether we win or lose. I just want to see the effort out there on the field. But if you think about a football team, especially the offense, okay, because if the defense is the negative, right, and their goal is the negative, then offense must be the positive. Their job is to put positive points on the scoreboard. We've got 11 people out there on a football field. 11 people that are on the same team, but they all have a different job to do, and they're all good at something different. Mm-hmm. They all know what they're supposed to be doing.
And to interrupt you just real quick, they certainly, this has been proven over and over again, don't all love and like each other.
No, they don't. They don't always get along with each other when they're not on the field, but they are willing to put that aside because they're all looking at the same end zone, and they're all trying to get the ball there. No matter which one of them carries it there or catches it there, they all have a job to do to make that happen. And that's what it comes down to is we're all on one team here. We're all trying to get to the end zone. We all have maybe a little bit different ideas on how to get there, but let's not lose track of the end zone just because we're bickering with the guy next to us on the line. Let's put aside the petty squabbles. Let's try, and there's the time and a place. There's fun times to go and have the 9mm versus 45 debate, right? The 1911 versus Glock, whatever. Those can be fun, but when it comes down to it, that's not what's important. But what's important is the Glock guy and the 1911 guy working side by side to try and raise awareness and improve public opinion of both Glocks and 1911s. And that is the goal that we all need to work toward. And any of us who aren't willing to work toward that common goal are not allies. Crucify me if you want to out in the chat, whatever. You don't have to agree with that. But anybody that's not willing to work with us towards that common goal, then I'm not going to consider them an ally, even if they are a gun owner. So, all right. Before we wrap things up, does anybody else or have anybody? Let me try that again. I can't talk. Never mind me. I'm just the host of this thing. Does anybody have anything else they want to throw out there before we start to wrap things up? In that case, like I said earlier, we're not talking too much about September 11th, but there will be a video coming out on the channel here and on Facebook tomorrow regarding that. Lord willing and the creek doesn't rise, Sandhills Sweetheart and I are going to make a trip to the range again tomorrow and do a little bit of playing. And because I shot so much on the 1022 last time, and my thumb is just now starting to recover, I did go and order a couple different 1022 magazine loaders. So we're going to bust those out. They haven't even been out of the packages yet. We're going to try those out tomorrow and hopefully do a little bit of a video on which one we like best, because I haven't really found any comparison videos on those. So hopefully we'll kind of have a video that if I was looking for it, maybe somebody else was. So that's going to happen. I'm going to name drop real quick. It's funny because somebody out in the chat earlier had mentioned trimming trees with shotguns and things like that. Speaking of which, and the Christian faith, I've been talking with Top Shot winner Dustin Ellerman. And now that camp is kind of winding down here in a few weeks in October, I think the 15th of October, we're going to try and have Dustin on here for a live chat, and he can just we'll do some interview stuff and a little Q&A and just kind of let him tell the world about who he is and what he does. And if you're not aware who Dustin Ellerman is, then you've got between now and then to find him out. Go, if you have Amazon, you can watch Top Shot. You can see him on there. It's a cool show.
Hey, the problem we're going to have is he has zero energy. He's a very boring person. And he has no passion about anything. So
there's no charisma. He has no charisma.
No, there's none.
Yeah, that's the opposite of true. All right, well, let's let everybody kind of wrap things up a little bit. We'll go back through the panel here. We did, like I said earlier, we lost Travis because he had some other stuff that he had to get to before he went to bed. For those of you that don't know, Travis and Mrs. Travis are dividing and conquering. He's in the process of finding a different place to live in a different town, but he's got his obligations with his teaching job in the old town. So he's still teaching. Mrs. Travis is in a different town across Nebraska, a couple hours down the road. And so they spend their weeks apart, their weekends together. He travels a lot back and forth. So that means that he's not out late, super late on these chats. I think he had to go call the wife, which is what you should do before you go to bed when you spend your daytimes apart like that. So that's where Travis disappeared to. Nothing bad happened. He's just living the divide and conquer life right now and doing some long distance stuff with Mrs. Travis during the weekdays. So you can find him on YouTube or Gunstreamer or guntube.org and Facebook and all the fun stuff. Just Travis P11. And he started up his live chat Caliber Corner on Mondays now, 6 o'clock Central Time, 6 p.m. You don't have to get up super early. And Caliber Corner is always cool. He talks about a wide variety of different stuff on there, and Travis is a good guy. So if you haven't liked his stuff and gone and subscribed to his channel, you need to do it. Everybody else can speak for themselves. So we'll start with you, Jim. Anything that you want to say? Anything coming out on the channel that you want to plug, or maybe not?
I got nothing to plug. I'll I'll be Night Strike here and say, shall not pee in fridge.
Shall not be in. Please don't. That nobody wants that in the fridge. All right. Well, thanks for being here, Jim. I'm glad to see you back. We'll move along to the other Texas connection, Clover Tack. Anything you want to say to wrap up?
Man, it's been a great show. Had a lot of fun. Hopefully, giving a lot of people stuff to think about. Yeah, I'll just pimp my stuff out, I guess, real quick. I mean, clovertack.com gets you every place that we are and pretty much access to everything that we do. The Wednesday podcast, the youth show, season 2 of that, still going on. So get over there, check that out if you want hope and inspiration and all of that for the future. We talked to some great kiddos, and so it's not drama free and the mundane negativity that goes on. That is certainly not that show for sure. It will renew your spirit, so to speak. And then Fire on Friday, the Friday podcast, of course, where we talk to industry and community. We've got SAR USA this week on Friday. So stop by there, download that podcast, all that good stuff, and hear about all the different products they've got. They're apparently coming on pretty strong lately. So good to see another good, strong farm company out there.
Very cool. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. This has been awesome. Ghost Tactical, you do sometimes show up here every now and then when you get done with your own show a little bit early for the night. So do you want to go ahead and plug what you do on Tuesdays and whatever else you want to do?
Not really. I mean, if they want to go check us out, you can find us on ghosttacticalproductions.com. If you want to get stupid and feel better about yourself, then come check us out. We've got some stuff going on, but most importantly, I like to tell people all the time, get out to the range, be more proficient with your firearm, take someone new. We all remember what it was like to pull the trigger for the first time. Let them experience a fun, safe way to feel that adrenaline rush and realize that guns are not scary and evil. They're only scary and evil when they don't have experience with them. So take them, make them have a good first experience with them. And while you're out there, turn the camera on, be part of the solution. Man, I really appreciate you having me, and this is a great conversation.
And I really appreciate you being here. All right. And on behalf of my beautiful bride, Sandhills Sweetheart, you can find us right here on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. The name is Sandhills Shooter. That's all we have right now for social media. Everything that we post on YouTube does go to gunstreamer.com as well, so you can look us up there. Just in case YouTube would ever shut us down, that's the only place that you'll be able to find us. And I am guilty of not doing enough stuff on GunTube. So I plan to step that up a little bit and get some more stuff over on GunTube. And then if you like what you see and you want to help support us, since YouTube or Google rather, Google gives me a payout about every 18 months, whether I need it or not, because that's all the faster that I rack up any money on ad revenue. So if you do want to help support us, you're welcome to go over and find us on Patreon and become a Sandhiller or an outlaw or a vigilante over there. Or if you really want to throw something into PayPal, I can get you that too. But I'm not asking for anybody to help support us monetarily. I just know that some of you are doing that, and we sure do appreciate it, because that money does go to help pay for some of the fun stuff that we get to do, or some of the technology to help make the videos look even better and sound even better. So we do appreciate all of our patrons over on the Patreon. I did not refresh on the gun channel side. I don't think there was a whole lot of chat going on over there. On the YouTube side, we had Jim Burgess, we had Mike Blitz, Ghost, Clover, Hill Climb, Ohio, JB, Boob Sweat, Leads to Pearl Necklaces, 10X Shooter, Squibload, Georgia Trucker, Travis, Kinky Sphincter, Hunan, Josieola, Calaveras was out there, Gizzard Gary was out there, Midnight Range, Other Travis, Kingpin, Patriot in the Dark, Gun Loving Grandpa, Seven Wonders, Rob D, 9mm, William Keller, Vanessa Kitty, Double A, The Poor Conservative, G Webs, Blue Steel, Local 223, Sam Me. I don't think I've seen Sam Me out there before. So thanks for being here. Dangerous Freedom, Weston Probst, Vash Matrix, Bloke, Gunpowder Beauty, MM53, which I think is another first. I don't remember seeing MM53 before, and Dead Horse. Hopefully I didn't miss any of you. Again, if we missed you, it's because you didn't comment enough or at all. So we want to be able to tell you hello and thank you for watching. So drop those comments in there. One last time, if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, please do so. And then hit the little notification bell and go to all. So whenever these chats or other videos come out, you'll get those notifications. Share us with all your friends too. Get your friends to come over and subscribe. We need all the help that we can get, letting YouTube know that channels like this actually sometimes try to make a difference, and hopefully we matter. If you're on Facebook, go to facebook.com/sandhillshooter and like and follow us over there as well. I try to do a fun deep thought every day, and I've got a couple of them scheduled to come out in the next couple of days. Tomorrow again is going to be 9/11 related, not as much fun, but still very important. And then look for that video. There's going to be some homework involved in that video, so I want everybody to find that and be able to do what we're requesting of you on that video. So thanks everybody for being here. This has been 2A Tuesday. We're thinking maybe we may have some more changes coming up for the channel that'll be coming up either yet this fall or maybe after the first of the year. But since we're starting to talk about some things that aren't necessarily gun related or 2A related, we may change the name of some stuff around, but we're still going to have the same type of chats that we always have, and hopefully have the same caliber of guests that we always have. See what I did there with the caliber thing? Thanks, guys. God bless. We love you. See you next week. And bye, Felicia.